Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Youth Voice Week, our final installment for the week. My name is Anna-Marie Descartes, and I have been your host for this week, and I am very, very excited for our show that we have coming up for you today. So throughout Youth Voice Week, we have been talking about leveling up. We have been talking about money, and today we are talking about from participant to practitioner. So we have a few special guests who will be sharing their journeys, sharing their stories about becoming a practitioner. Joining me on screen is the lovely Jax, who is our British Sign Language interpreter, and yeah, it's going to be a very interesting talk today. If you are tuned in on YouTube, be sure to leave a comment in the live chat and let us know how you're doing on this Friday morning. Are you feeling good? It's a little bit gloomy outside, but hopefully this talk will put a little pep in your step, will give you some inspiration on your journey. So let's bring to the screen, we have Amala, who's an independent artist and former urban development. We have Kizzy Brooks, who is a practitioner from Spitalfields Music. We also have Alex Phelps, who's also a practitioner from Spitalfields Music. Welcome everyone to the stage. How is everyone? You can unmute yourselves.
Hey.
Hi. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention Sasha as well. Sasha is listening. Yeah, so before we go into our overarching topic that we have today, I'm going to give you a chance to talk about yourselves and a little bit about what you do. So first, I'll start with Amala.
Hiya, so my name's Amala. I am primarily a singer and a songwriter. There are two things that I've done since I was like a child, like 10 years old. But it wasn't until I was like 21, 22 that I decided to do it professionally. So my route is a little bit different to some of the other participants and just musicians in general. And sort of working with other people, and especially young people, has been something that I've learned to do as I've developed in my career. So it's not necessarily something I see as separate. It's definitely something that has built over the years. So I'm excited to hear everybody else's story.
Great. And Kizzy?
Yeah, hi everyone. As you can probably see from the room behind me, I'm a percussionist, and I kind of split my time between performing in lots of different orchestras and bands, and then also working as a facilitator. It's something I'm really, really passionate about. I came from a state school background, and so I really know that actually, if you get these opportunities to meet amazing musicians at those stages, it can really lead to amazing things. I was really lucky to get a scholarship to go to the Royal College of Music in London. And I think if you'd said that to me when I was like 12 or 13, I would have just thought, no way, I'm never even leaving Devon, let alone going to London. So yeah, it's been great, and had lots of great support along the way as well.
Great, thank you. Alice?
Hi there, I'm Alice and I play the double bass and I sing, and I split my time between performing in bands and orchestras and also facilitating. So I run a choir in Bradford, which is a community choir for everyone, but particularly people seeking asylum and refugee status. And I work, excuse me, I work for Live Music Now in the Northwest. I live in Manchester. And so I do a lot of outreach work with them in special needs schools, youth centres, care homes, and pupil referral units. So yeah, a real mix.
Nice to hear that. And lastly, Sasha.
Hi everyone, I'm Sasha. I actually started not in music, so I have a a psychology degree and masters, and then used to play music a lot, and that came back into my life, and I specialised in special educational needs, and then went into the wellbeing route and brought back my love of music and percussion, and now I'm an educator with helping people to work more closely with a wide range of people with different needs and abilities, and do relaxation and well-being, which is at the heart of my practice.
Great. It looks like we're going to be having a very interesting conversation today. So to the people at home, if you are tuned in, just drop a comment in the live chat, or you can tweet us at Sound Connections and at Wired for Music, and let us know your thoughts. So let's get right in. The overarching topic and the question that we are trying to solve today is, what has your journey towards becoming a practitioner been like? And it sounds like you all do amazing things in different parts of life, so it would be interesting to hear your story. So once again, I'll start with you, Amala. What's your journey to becoming a practitioner been like?
It's been a little non-linear, I think, is perhaps the best word. Like Sasha, I went to university. I did anthropology, so like history and politics and culture are a big part of who I am, and I didn't really necessarily know how to connect that to being a musician at the time. And I live in London, so the Roundhouse in Camden was a really important place for me to be going whilst I was at university, because it was that one sort of space that allowed me to be creative and musical. And for those 2.5, 3 years that I was there, I was part of this project called the Music Collective. And it was essentially like 12-ish musicians between the ages of like 17 and 25. And we were put on stages, that I didn't even know existed, and I really was able to to write music with other people really for the first time, to perform regularly, to rehearse regularly, and get all that sort of training that other people would have gotten at a music college or a music university or a music school. So that was really a key part of my career as a musician, but also as a facilitator, because what the Roundhouse are really, really great at is, as your journey sort of progresses, you're able to then go back and do talks. So that's where I sort of started speaking to other people about what I was doing with my career. It was like, cool, I've just got this grant, and people asking me, how did I get the grant? And it's cool, like, okay, I'm happy to tell you. But then there just becomes a point where there's a lot of people and you need to tell them in a sort of contained place at one time. So that was sort of how it began. And then as I was trying to sort of navigate getting a graduate job with also trying to work in music, I began to work in like music charities. And that was really helpful for me because it enabled me to work with young people, do workshops with, on songwriting and musicianship and singing, but also do the coordination. So, when I was working in a charity a few years ago, I would coordinate like different schools and different facilitators. And then I was able to use, my friends who are amazing musicians who play jazz and play soul and put them into schools where the practitioners look like them. So there's all of these like different sort of aspects that I've realized just coming where I come from and not necessarily studying music in that formal way has enabled me to teach. So that's the kind of journey. But mostly what I do now alongside my music is I run songwriting workshops, which has been great because I feel like songwriting is an amazing way to, tell people who you are, speak about your story, and yeah, just get your own voice out there. I think young people just need, I am young, but people need a voice, and an avenue to say things and speak their mind. And I think music can be so powerful for that. So that's the journey.
Great. I love that story. I love that it wasn't one directional and you've gone through many paths to get to where you are today. Like I'm sure most of you have. Let's go to Kizzy. Let's hear your story.
Yeah, so I started out, as I said, at the Royal College, and I actually got involved in their outreach department called Sparks in my very first week. So straight away, I was assisting on workshops and getting to work in lots of different places. By the time I left there, I'd actually moved to leading those workshops. So I started working with organisations like the Royal Albert Hall and the Orchestra of Age of Enlightenment and Bournemouth Symphony Orchestra and leading some of their work. And then when I was a couple of years out, kind of, freelancing and teaching, I heard about Spitalfields, and it just seemed like exactly the thing that would help me. So they have this program where you get to have a mentor for a year and you get to shadow them and have a go at leading your own projects with other musicians as well. So I was really lucky to get on that for a year from 2018 to 2019. And then once I'd done that, I started getting work from other places. So working with people like the London Symphony Orchestra and the National Youth Orchestra, where I work as a creative lead. And then actually really it was COVID. I think for a lot of us as musicians, it was quite a strange time because we weren't out performing. And I was really lucky to be able to carry on with the teaching, which I really love. But I just came acutely aware of the widening divide in music, where I had students that were maybe at private schools or who had one-to-one lessons who were pretty much carrying on as usual. They were still getting all of that work with their teachers. And then I have students, because I run some ensembles for Surrey Arts, so it's a music service. And for those students, pretty much everything had stopped. And it just seemed so unfair that this was happening at this time. So that spurred me on to co-found our online platform called Perkworks, and we offer free online ensembles and masterclasses and workshops to absolutely anyone aged 18 and under. And we were really lucky to get Arts Council funding. So we've been running that for a year, and it's been amazing. Over 1 year, we've had 2,000 participants, and we've had an audience of 20,000, which was pretty crazy. When we were doing our application, we put down that we might work with 50 students. So it went a bit bigger than we expected, but it's been fantastic to see how many young people there are out there that want to get involved with music. And our whole mission is really to show young people the diverse career paths there are within music, because I think it can sometimes feel like, right, okay, well, I'm going to go and study, and then I'm going to sit at the back of an orchestra. And that's great. I love doing that. It's one of my huge passions, but actually it doesn't have to just be that. You can have all these different things going on at once. So yeah, that's what we're really passionate about doing.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing. We'll move on to you, Alice.
Hi there. So like Amala, my journey to becoming a music practitioner has been quite circuitous. It's definitely not been straightforward, but I guess the seed of it was planted like really early on. Excuse me. When my double bass teacher when I lived back down in Salisbury was a guy called Andy Baker, who I know Kizzy knows. I've just made that connection. He plays for the Bournemouth Symphony Orchestra. I'm originally from the Southwest. And he would talk to me in our lessons about work that he was doing in sort of youth homes and special needs schools and stuff. And I was really fascinated by this kind of work that he was doing. I think the name for that work, he's called an animateur, which is a term that's sometimes used for people who play in orchestras who are responsible for a lot of the outreach. And so that was where that seed of an idea was planted. So in my teenage years. And then I went and I studied music at Leeds University, which was fine. I don't think it was the right, looking back, I don't think it was the right course for me. I didn't get as much out of that as I could have done. And then in my early 20s, I trained as a luthier, which is I'll just allow Craig to spell that. Yeah, which is a violin maker and restorer. So I worked for about 4 years from the age of 21 to 25, pretty much full time, making, restoring, and repairing stringed instruments, which is a bit different and a lot more of a solitary activity. And I really enjoyed it and got to do some interesting things. I went to the Philippines and with an organization called Luthiers Sans Frontières, so violin makers without borders. And I built a workshop for a youth orchestra in the Philippines and trained up 3 teenage boys to do the work that I do. But I realized it was that aspect of it that excited me, like going into communities. I was giving double bass lessons, I was leading singing workshops there as well. And that is where my passion always has been, is working with people. So I decided to change careers in my mid-20s when I was 26. And I started work. I managed to get a job with an organization called Artists, which is a education outreach charity which places artists of all disciplines, so not just music but also dancers and actors, into primary schools to facilitate creative workshops. I had no experience. I don't know how I got on the scheme, but I did. And it was an absolute baptism of fire. They just put me in a school on my own for a year. And to this day, it is the hardest thing I've ever done. And in a way, that was great because everything since then has felt fairly chill and like quite easy. But I'll talk more about that when some of the other questions come up, because I know that there will be questions about challenges, and boy do I have some challenges to share with you guys. So I in 2019 to 2020 I was also a Spitalfields trainee music leader, and that experience, you guys have been talking about leveling up, like that is the experience that really leveled up my practice and has built my confidence to start taking on much more challenging projects. And the choir that I run, sorry, I've got a real frog in my throat today. Not COVID, just a frog in my throat. And the choir that I run has recently received a large chunk of Arts Council funding, and so that has pushed me to start leading and managing some quite large scale community collaborations and projects. So yeah, that has been my journey.
Great. Interesting. Very, very interesting. And I'm looking forward to delving deeper into that very, very soon. And lastly, let's come to you, Sasha. What's your journey like been to being a practitioner?
So yeah, when I was younger, I had percussion lessons and dance lessons, and then that kind of I thought I wanted to be a professional musician, and my sister was born when I was 16, so drumming at night became not so possible. And so I instead took a year out and did some volunteering in Canada with a community theatre, which made me realise how much I loved working with people and understanding people and not understanding people, but wanting to find out better ways of working with really diverse people and groups, and with different needs. And so I was there for 5 months in Toronto, and then travelled a bit more, and then realised that I wanted to do psychology, which was something else I was really interested in, and thought that might be turn into a psychologist, not realising how kind of broad a psychology degree is. And I picked Goldsmiths Uni because they had in third year a module of music psychology, so I still was able to try and sneak in my music. And but actually at uni it was really, I tried to join the orchestra that Goldsmiths had, but they were really not inclusive for anybody that wasn't a music student. And so that it felt like I was told that right now music is not the thing, and I didn't actually think I would ever get back into it very much, apart from if I ever came home to my parents, I'd join the brass band. The north of England is famous for brass banding. That's where I started my music. So I stopped playing basically for about 4 years, or maybe even a bit longer. And then I went into to do a master's in special educational needs because I accidentally got an amazing supervisor who was a musician and then went into psychology when she was in her 40s. So kind of did a switch the other way around, but was specialised in musical ability in special educational needs, and saw additional needs in a really beautiful positive light, which often is not noticed or acknowledged. And so that kind of really showed me another way of working with people that might a lot of psychology is diagnosing and what's wrong, what's different, why can't people do what these people can do, and she's flipped it around for me. And so I thought doing a master's in that would be perfect. And I went to King's College, did a master's in, it's called neurodevelopmental disorders, and sounds absolutely amazing. And I was in for 1 day a week and supposedly full time and really bored. So I was working as a receptionist in a dance studio, and randomly this email came when I was there about an inclusive dance course. So I went on thinking I was just going to be a participant, and actually ended up becoming, I was volunteering but supporting some of the other dancers, attend and dance within the class, and then supporting them when they did a performance. And through that I got some work doing dance with special educational needs. And I realised, this is kind of this feels great. This doesn't feel like working. And I was naturally good at it without having definitely not a dancer. I don't have I'm not a professional dancer, but I was able to use what I did have with my knowledge for special educational needs, and they tied really well together. And then I'm not sure exactly what happened, but somehow I came across Sound Connections, and they were looking for youth trustees at the time. So I applied and became a a youth trustee through Sound Connections, because I think my music was calling me back, and I think like almost, I don't know, subconsciously or something. And the first event that Sound Connections had on when I was a trustee was the 8 music hubs doing this really big event of like looking for new music teachers. But I went as a trustee to find out what Sound Connections are up to, and then accidentally started speaking to Canva Music Service, and I was like, oh, I specialise in special educational needs, and I'm a percussionist, or well, I used to be, but still see myself as that. And they mentioned that they had some students with additional needs that they were finding it hard to support. So I gave them my email and didn't really think anything of it. And like 6 months later, I got an email saying, actually, our student's really struggling. Can you come and see if you are able to work with them and support them? And and so I suddenly was a music teacher after having not played the drum kit or xylophone for like 4.5 years. And I was like, okay, I'm just gonna have to wing this. But it was so good to be back playing, and I didn't realize how much I'd missed it until I was back again. And then like a year later, my dad was diagnosed with motor neuron disease and like flipped everything upside down. And so I think I'm going to talk about that a bit later, because I do a job 2 days a week that's like contracted, that exists all the time, that's not freelance. And so but it's still with special educational needs and doing the more creative art stuff with young people with learning disabilities, and seeing the difference of how I'm supported freelance and not freelance is definitely something I would like to share later. So then COVID happened, and but at the same time my family were still are going through a crisis, and so work just slipped sort of, and I realized I had to focus on well-being and drifted into like, I don't know if people know about gongs, but they have like their big instruments that have these really beautiful tones that really help with relaxation. So I started to look at that both for myself, and then realized how good it was for everybody. And so I trained and I'm now a gong master practitioner to support with well-being and trying, but that's kind of where I am. And at this point of how do I get back into the world post-COVID while still not being where all my work is.
That's great. Thank you. All of you have such interesting stories, and I'm very happy that you went in depth and told us each step that you took along the way that has led you to where you are today. So it's truly inspiring, and I'm grateful for you sharing your stories. So let's get into the next question. And Alice, you guessed it, we are talking about challenges. So what are some of the challenges that you have faced during this journey, and do you have any tips? I'll start again with you. I'll start with Kizzy. So
I think the first challenge was really like, I came out the other side having studied music, and it seemed like I'd just been pushed into this massive void. So it's like you have all this support, you're like, right, I'm practicing, I know what I'm doing. Then you come out the other side and you're like, oh, okay, what happens next? So I think at first it was quite it was quite a lot to adjust to. And then it seemed like it wasn't even about who you know, it was actually about who knew you. So you could do all you wanted. I can remember just sending probably hundreds of emails to people saying like, I'm really interested in doing this work. I'd love to work with your organization. And then you just don't hear anything at all back. So that's why when I heard about Spitalfields, it seemed like, oh, okay, amazing. Here's an organization that's actually doing something about this. So it was really having that support from Spitalfields and them being able to introduce me to lots of amazing practitioners and organizations as well. And then that really kind of all of a sudden, this whole other level of work opens up to you, and you get to work with all these amazing people. So I think that would be my top tip, is find an organization like Spitalfields. I know they do amazing work, but there are lots of others as well that can help you meet all those people. Because as soon as I think all of us, and I know people listening as well, as soon as you get seen by the right people, of course, they're going to be really happy to help you along that journey. I think everyone in music, once you can actually meet them, is really nice and wants to help you. So I think that would be my best tip, is find an organisation that can help you meet those other people.
Great advice. How about you, Alice?
Okay, yeah, I'll try and keep this brief because I do have lots of examples of challenges. So as I mentioned, one of the first organisations I worked for was Artists Education, and I know a lot of I have a lot of friends who've like really enjoyed working for artists, and so this is very much just my personal experience and not me passing judgment necessarily on the organisation itself. But I did find that I got onto the scheme, and then we were taken on a 3-day residential training course, which was really magical and really inspiring. And I learned all of the basics of warm-up games, how to plan a session, how to develop a theme, and some behavior management tricks and techniques, and then I was just put in a school in special measures in South Leeds for a year on my own. And so and I was working with whole classes, with 30 kids, in a classroom, not in a hall, just in their classroom. And I was expected to do sessions with Key Stage 1 that were an hour and a quarter long without a break. And I didn't have any other adult in the room with me. So that was my first facilitating job. And as I said, to this day, it is the hardest thing I have ever done. And I really, really struggled with behavior management. And I really struggled with just classroom management and making that work for the students I was working with. And I put it down to me being very green and lacking in confidence, which was a factor. However, the problem was I was so inexperienced, I didn't realize that I was being put in a basically impossible situation. So I don't know if this term will mean anything to you guys here, but I was doing PPL cover. Yeah, Kizzy's nodding her head. So essentially, I was taking over from the normal classroom teacher so that they could go and do some CPD, some like professional development, basically have a little bit of a break. And so I didn't have the support of the classroom teacher. She was basically like, yeah, just take them hour and a quarter, wasn't invested in what I was trying to do. And I think the reason why I'm sharing this with you guys is because I want people who are starting out in this work, if you find yourself in a situation where you're on your own with no experience, it's not right, and it's not good, and it's not your fault if it's really hard. And I would say my top tips are to just ask for help and to set clear boundaries of what of the environment that you expect to be in. So I had I had many points during that year where I actually wasn't able to provide a safe learning environment for those children. And I didn't have the experience and the confidence to go to the organisation that I was working for and say, this is unacceptable. And I now know I would now have no problem with being that assertive. But the one thing that got me through that particular year was I did have a mentor who I'm still in touch with these days, and she came and she worked alongside me on a couple of weeks, and she spent just hours on the phone while I had meltdown after meltdown, just talking me through different ideas, giving me the confidence to carry on. And I wouldn't have made it through that year without her. So that really has cemented the importance of mentorship in this work. It can be really lonely work, even though you're working with loads of people. If you're facilitating on your own, it can be quite isolating. So I have made it a mission to seek out as many mentors as possible in my career, which Spitalfields Music has made possible, and Live Music Now has also been very supportive in. I don't know if I mentioned that I work for Live Music Now, which is I did. Yeah, cool. So yeah, I know I've spoken just a lot about this one experience, which was right at the beginning of my career, but I do think that in a way, like, that's the most important thing to share, because it was really, really challenging. And then since then, things have got loads better. So yeah, I think that's all I'm going to share for now.
Great. Thank you for your honesty. I'm sorry you went through that hectic year, but you made it out the other end alive, which is great. Let's move on to Amala. Let's hear your story. What challenges have you faced on your journey?
Thanks, Anna-Marie. I just want to echo what Alice said. I mean, it is so hard going into a room with lots of kids who, you know, are expecting you to have a lot of knowledge. Obviously, you've come in as a practitioner, and being very young and not knowing how to get the best out of them for them. It's a really, really hard thing that I don't even know if I have overcome yet. But just this idea of like finding your champions has been a really, really important thing for me in my career. I know that I spoke a little bit about the Roundhouse, but whilst I was transitioning from the Roundhouse into, you know, like being a full-time musician, there is a long period as an artist where you're like managing your career like a business, and you have to be able to navigate all of these different avenues of the music industry and the music charity sector, in terms of there's funding applications you need to write, there's building your team, you need a lawyer, an agent, you know, all of these different people that you require to progress yourself. And I don't think I would have been able to do any of that if I didn't have, you know, executives and people that, you know, I met at events and panels and things like this, where I could call and I'm going, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I need help. I need somebody to tell me, like, is this okay? Like, am I under too much stress? Should I quit my job yet? Should I wait? You know, there's a lot of uncertainty, and I think finding people that empathize with your journey is so important in getting that done. And I think for me as well, having those people has been really important, because those are the people who have shown me that actually what I'm doing is facilitating workshops. What I'm doing is, you know, being a practitioner and being a teacher and a mentor to other people. Whereas the things that I've done throughout my career, I don't know if I would have necessarily termed it in this way. And I think that's only because I've come from like outside the music school system. And it's just like, I'm just like with my community. Do you know what I mean? If I'm facilitating something, I'm just helping. I'm just with my community. But actually, no, it is often what other people do and are paid to do. So like recognizing that difference has been an interesting part of my journey that I'm still working on. But yeah, I don't know if that was clear, but all of those things are things I'm working on. Yeah.
No, that was clear. Thank you, Amala. And lastly, Sasha, what have some of your challenges been?
I think my biggest challenge is something I'm going through now and have been going through for the last 2 years. So I mentioned before that my dad developed motor neuron disease. Got a preliminary diagnosis like 4 months before lockdown, and so that shifted my whole, like suddenly I had to make loads of decisions, or sort of had to make loads of decisions about my career and my job and where I needed to be and what I needed to do. And what was really fascinating was that my job that was PAYE I was able to go, like, take emergency leave like the next day, go and be at home to support with the beginnings of this, like, I don't know if you know about M&D, but it's like probably, a horrible thing to get diagnosed with, and then for the family and the impact that has. And so to come to terms with that on a personal level while having all these jobs that I needed to do on a professional level, and so to be able to be told that I could just go for a week and sort all that out was brilliant. But as time's gone on, and like my freelance work were fine to let me go for a week, but on the same phone call they said, but you need to find cover for this, and you need to find cover for this, and you need to find cover for this. And I just needed to switch off, and I needed to be at home and process everything, because I knew if I was in a space trying to facilitate with all these emotions going on, I could either do it and do a bad job, or I could do or not do it, or not do it well. And so this was happening, and I then think in some ways I was very fortunate that COVID happened when it did, because suddenly places that would never have let me work from home all the time had no choice but to adapt to, and everyone was adapting. And so for me, it showed me how much things can adapt and can change and can support people through different crises, whereas I would have just had to hand in my notice for all my work in London and leave and come home, because I couldn't, as the kind of person I am, I couldn't just leave that. But then as things like move forward, my work was, the one with PAYE was still super understanding, and I went from 3 days a week to 2 days a week, but I could work those hours over the whole of the week whenever I could fit them in. Whereas all of my freelance work, if I couldn't do it when it was, I couldn't do it, couldn't get the money. I didn't even qualify for any of the support through COVID, so I couldn't get any of the funding through any of that. And there was also no supervision or anyone to talk to about what was going on. Whereas my supervisor at my PAYE job was there and would listen and would pick up the phone and say, just take the afternoon off, just do whatever you need. Like, and so I think that's something that's really pulled out more and more and more in the last 2 years, of how the lack of support that is in most freelance work for any kind of mental health condition or physical thing that happens that you have no control over, it that I already knew was there, but didn't realize how bad it could get if you didn't have anything else to support you with that. And so I really back up Alice's point of finding a mentor and having someone to talk to. And you might not even think you need it, but you do. Nobody doesn't need somebody to talk to, even if it feels like it's not important. It is. And I think with all my well-being experience, even I didn't realize that I was missing that until like last week. And I was like, oh my God, for 2 years I've not had this support for half of the work that I do, and had to lose it all. And actually it's the work that sort of most fulfills me, yet there's no support in it for me. And I've heard about it from all my friends that are freelance, that they've just lost work and there's not support from the organisations. So I think, I would totally say get a mentor. If you're putting in funding, put that as a must to go in as for artist support, is to get someone like £50 an hour, £75 an hour, put it in for once a month at least. It's so vital to keep yourself well. Because I couldn't, without the support from my work, I couldn't have done all the support at home for my family and kept that going without having someone to talk to about it. So I think that's a really big one. And it's I think the other thing that has probably shifted since I last did a talk like this with Sound Connections is 2 years ago I said, even a year ago I said I'd say yes to every opportunity. But like Alice, now I have, I've learned what my boundaries are and what's actually important. And actually sometimes you need to ask questions first before you say yes. You need to, it's good to make the contacts, but actually one of the organisations that I've worked for the longest for, I've not been in touch for the last year and not checked in on me, even though I've worked for them for 4 years. And I, when I could, I gave everything, and whenever they had stuff that was going wrong, I stepped in and supported, and didn't even necessarily get paid in the right way for that. And then when I've gone through something, they've just gone. So yeah, I think really value yourself well is like, you're all important. We're all important. And so yeah, I think it's, to me, well-being is like the heart of everything. If you're well, you can do your job well, and it's important to put that first, to make sure you're supported, to then support and give as much as everybody who is an artist always gives. I think I'll stop talking. Yeah. But
thank you for that, Sasha, and thank you for being open and sharing your experiences with us. We are a little bit pushed for time, so I'm just gonna leave it with one last question, and let's try and be as succinct as possible so we don't run over. But this goes back to your points, Alice, and your points, Sasha, about maybe just not feeling supported in the roles that you have. But what can organizations do to support you in your journey as a practitioner? I'll start with you, Amala.
I'm just going to say the first thing that came to my head, because I need way more time to think. For me, I feel like what's really helped me in my career is actually the skills that I didn't learn as a music practitioner. I've done like quite a lot of work in like startup businesses and business courses, and I think that has enabled me to be able to take those skills of like being able to manage a budget, being able to manage my time, being able to set boundaries, to understand that, you know, building a career is about partners, funding, and then adding partners. It's all of that sort of those business kind of skills that you don't often get taught as a musician, that I've found is really, really valuable and really important for young people who are figuring out how to grow up like I am, how to become an adult, especially now, that I don't necessarily feel we have. And I think for me, if me and my peers had more of that in these free talks and in these free panels, I think that would help us take a bit more control of our own career and have a bit more authority when we walk into rooms and when we want to set our boundaries and set our limits. So yeah, that for me was really helpful.
Thank you. Kizzy, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, so I was thinking a lot about this, and I think it's quite similar, Amala, to what you were just saying. I think I've got 3 things. The first one is more opportunities like this, where people can network and can meet each other. And then the second one is actually support and advice on how to apply for grants. The first time I did an Arts Council grant, it was actually because the Musicians Union had put on an event which talked you through every single step of the application form, because it is so complicated and it's so hard to navigate. So I think just some help and support. Once you get the form in, there's so many people out there that want to help you put on projects. So some help on that. And then the third one, I think it would be really amazing if more organizations opened projects up to applications and bids from everyone. Because I think often organizations can be like, right, we've got 2 or 3 facilitators who we love working with, and then they do everything with those 3 people. And actually that means that there are people coming out of different places every year that just don't have a look in on those projects. So I know that some organizations have started doing this, which is like, okay, we've got a term's work in a primary school, send us what you would do with that project. And I think if people can do that more often, then younger practitioners will have an actual chance to start working with these organizations. And it only takes one project for then a relationship to be formed, and then you can start getting work from lots of other people as well. So yeah, I think those 3 things.
Thank you. Alice.
Yeah, some really great things have already been covered there, so I will keep this really brief. The organisation that I work with, who I think does an amazing job of being supportive, is Live Music Now. They are very hot on kind of pastoral care of their practitioners, and they do a lot of networking events, and they really kind of terrace your journey through working with them. And by that, I mean they don't just send you in on your own. You start off working as a band in a group, going and just doing concerts with a little bit of interaction. And then they kind of gradually build your confidence and train you over a number of years to then become a music leader on your own. And I have just been very impressed by that. And so, if there's anyone watching who would be interested in working with them, because they're a nationwide organisation, I would 100% recommend applying. And yeah, I think because we're pressed for time, and so much good stuff has already been said, I'll pass on.
Thank you, Alice. And lastly, Sasha, how can they support you? How can organizations support you?
Sorry, my unmute disappeared. I think it's acknowledging the whole part of a person, not just their amazing skills at running a workshop, but what it takes to do that. What happens before, what happens after, what's happened yesterday when they weren't working for you, what might happen next week when they're not working for you, and I think supervision is key. I think for development, so that because all artists want to develop and want to learn and want to grow, and often it's paid for from the money that you're earning that's also going to the taxpayer. Whereas if you're in an organisation, you get if you're PAYE, then you get supervision as a part of your development. And so I don't really see why it's not when you're freelance as well and you're still working for this organisation, because if you get better, then you do your job better and the organisation does better. It's always so. Yeah, mentoring or supervision is my my thing. Definitely.
Thank you. These are all very, very important points that you've made. And I do hope if any organizations are watching that they do take some pointers from you lot who have experienced it firsthand. So yeah, we're going to wrap this up now. I will ask all of you ladies just to close off and just share something about yourself. If you've got anything coming up that you want to plug, now's the time to do that, or where people can find you and contact you. I'll start with you, Sasha.
I have a website that is not very good because I've only just had time to start making it. I think I don't even know, sashamatop.co.uk. Yeah, if anyone wants to get in touch about anything you're going through, like, I get it, and I understand it's tough, anything personal with professional, and there's often not the support. It's definitely something I want to develop in the future. And so, yeah, if anyone's interested in that or just wants to chat, please do reach out. You can probably find me on Sound Connections as well as a way to get in touch because I'm trustee. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Amala, how about you?
I'm playing a show in Camden Assembly on the 4th of November. If you want to come down and watch me play, which is really exciting. That's like my next big thing that I've got to do before the end of the year. And if you want to join any songwriting workshops, you can just find me like at Amala Music on every social media possible. I am there. You will find me. Just DM me.
Thank you. Kizzy.
Yeah, so Perkworks, and our website is percworks.co.uk. We've got free events every single Sunday in term time, so we carry on in 2 days' time with those, and it's open to all young musicians 18 and under. You don't have to be a percussionist, and we also do a lot with creativity and composition as well. And if there are any educators out there that would like to get involved, please do get in touch, because it's great to have you involved as well. We've had lots of people joining for sessions, and yeah, we've got some great artists coming up, like the percussionists from the Lion King UK tour. So they're going to be doing a masterclass with us next.
Nice. Great, exciting. And Alice.
Hi there. So if anyone watching wants to get in contact with me, the social media I use most is Instagram. And my handle is Alice Phelps spelt backwards, which looks like Splepakiller. Good luck, Craig. And, so sorry about that. But if you type in Alice Phelps, you should be able to find me on Instagram. If anyone wants to just send me a message, if anyone's got any questions about work or wants to just share ideas, oh, nice one, it's just appeared on the screen, look at that. What time to be alive. And if you also give my choir a follow, that's the Bradford Friendship Choir, which on Instagram is BD Friends Choir. And we've got some really interesting projects going on at the moment, and it's just a really joyful, fun thing to be part of. And so just, come along and say hello. I am next playing in London on the 20th of November as part of London Jazz Festival with a guy called Bill Lawrence, who is from the band Snarky Puppy, and I'm playing in an orchestra alongside him. So if you happen to be coming to that, come and say hi afterwards. And yeah, I think that's it.
Great. Thank you so much for all your inspiration, your wisdom, and your vulnerability and sharing your stories. This has been a very insightful conversation. This is the last morning show from Youth Voice Week. So all of our remaining events are happening today. So today at 1 p.m, we have a group surgery, so you can have a chat with a Sound Connections team member and a Youth Voice Week producer just to get a little bit more insight. If you have any questions, that's the perfect place to ask them. And then at 3 p.m, we have a Wired for Music webinar with Liz and Esther. They'll be having a chat about skills and behaviors needed to transition from participant to practitioner. So I hope you enjoyed today's morning show. My name is Anna-Marie. I was your host. So you can follow me at Anna-Marie Descartes on the socials if you like. And yes, once again, thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you again soon. Bye.